Blacksmith Meanderings part something, because I'm bored. Bit of a story this time round, and a good example of crafts and early engineering being passed down through storytelling. So there was a chap about 1500 years ago, about the same time St. Patrick was around, just before the Vikings, called Wayland. Now if you're English you'll know him as Wayland, if you're Scandinavian he might be Volkundir, and if you want a Latinized version it might be Valent or Valence. He married a Valkyrie, interesting fella. Now he had a lot of good stories telling about him, but one of the lesser known ones that always fascinated me involved some unfortunate chickens and a legendary sword. So our boy Wayland was challenged in Fidrik's saga, specifically Varens Fatersmith. It's on the Wikipedia page if you're interested in reading the whole thing. He was challenged by a king's bladesmith, and said, "I bet I can make a better sword than you." So what our boy Wayland does is he makes a sword, and it cuts. He puts it in a river and just lets the water carry and see what happens. And it cuts a sheep's fleece clean in half, but that's not good enough for him. So he grinds it up and in disgust throws it out in the yard. He gets a notion, either by gods or the king or the fact he had a deadline coming up, that actually probably shouldn't have done that and he should give that sword a second chance. So what he does, he goes out and he goes, "Oh dear, the chickens had eaten all the seeds and the hay and the straw and wherever the iron filings, the steel filings he'd thrown out were." So he collected all this up and he smelts it in what I imagine would have been a bloom furnace. He gets an ingot and through some blacksmithing and working down, makes the legendary sword Myrming, which does one of two things. One, it either cuts his opponent's armor clean in half as a demonstration of skill and wins the competition, or he puts it in a river again and then sees what comes towards it. With no effort, it cuts, I think it was 8 fleeces of sheep's wool, which is very similar to the Masamune Muramasa Japanese blacksmiths who did a similar thing, putting their swords in water and seeing if they would cut without any pressure. But they use silk because they're a bit fancier. Now, you might think this is absolute nonsense, chicken dung and such, but I read, can't remember where, but there was a gentleman, I think an American blacksmith, who tried this. Now, I don't know how he did it, if he smelted with chicken dung or if he actually put iron dust in his chicken feed, no idea. But from the resulting ingot that he smelted, he found that it produced quite a good quality steel. If I remember correctly, it had a good spark test, had a surprisingly good amount of carbon, but that does depend on what kind of iron filings he was using in the first place. And he could harden it, which means fundamentally it would make a very good blade. He did note, if I remember correctly, that it didn't forge well to itself very well, but more testing, I imagine. That is a prime example of how crafts can be carried down by a bunch of people chin-wagging, and I find that absolutely fascinating. If you've got any tales similar, do let me know in the comments. That's all for now. Ta-ra!